Yo, JD here, and as you can see, we are back on F1 22 once again, and as you can see by the title of this video, we are going to test ourselves against some F1 esports level competition. This guy's name is called Schumacher_1, and if you've been on PlayStation for the last few years, he has qualified for the challenges for the last 3 years in a row. And in last season, he actually got 3 podiums, 1 pole position, 1 win. Just missed out on qualifying for the Pro Expedition in P7. So he's been a top 10 player for the last 3 years at least. And you can see this first race we did together here, he had a bit of a Ferrari engine malfunction, and we decided to do a 1v1 against each other. So it was best of 5, so whoever wins the first 3 races. We made sure we chose tracks that we have both done and we do have setups for. And yeah, this is just going to be, for me as well, but especially I think for me, to see what level I'm at, because I haven't really played on PlayStation that much, well, only until this year really. And Schumacher, incredibly nice guy, is just an absolute beast, especially his race pace. His race pace in the challenges was pretty incredible and did some pretty impressive drives. And he said to me that if he was able to practice a little bit more, I think he could have got even more out of himself. So I really wanted to see where my level was at, because I feel like I'm improving every single day, and hopefully you learn something from this video as well. I will probably be uploading more setups from Monday, so I'm just going to take a little bit of a break this weekend since we do have Silverstone on. But I really hope you have enjoyed the video so far. Make sure you do subscribe for more hot laps and setups, tutorials and content such as this. And yeah, back to the video. I was very excited to go against Schumacher because he is just incredibly consistent, and this is also good information for me on how to approach the game. And I've said this many times in the past before, it's not always about your speed. Now, obviously it helps if you're the fastest driver, but sometimes it isn't the fastest driver that wins. It's really the smartest driver, the one who manages their race the best. And Mr. Jarno Opmeer, we all know, is rapid, obviously one of the fastest drivers as well. But if you look at his qualifying record in esports, people like Barry Barrowman, Fredrik Rasmussen, they actually have a better qualifying record than him. I just feel he probably makes the right decision. So he uses the ERS wisely, he manages the tyres well, he knows when to push, when not to push. And doing races like this against this level of competition, this is basically education for me, knowing how to plan my attack and how to really structure my races. And obviously improving the raw pace, as I said, is the cherry on top, but it really isn't everything in my opinion, because I know probably 1,000 drivers who could qualify for F1 esports, or if you just talk about league racing itself, there's hundreds more of drivers who are rapid, but they can't put it all together over a race, whether that's through track limits or bad decision making, or overusing their ERS or tyres and not knowing when to dial back their driving because they're always pushing at 100% all the time. So I think all those factors are critical in itself, and this is what I'm trying to learn here. And through my experience so far playing the multiplayer, and you can probably see here right now, DRS is pretty useless on this game. It is really, I don't know, let me know what your thoughts are in terms of the balancing of the DRS, ERS and that kind of stuff. What are your thoughts on that? But for me, I feel the DRS is definitely a little bit underpowered. I feel that the ERS, the overtake button, if the guy ahead of you is not using it, it's really OP if you have battery to use and the guy doesn't. I feel the slipstream is pretty much non-existent, and the dirty air, there is a slight bit of dirty air, but nothing too crazy. And in my opinion, and you'll see in the footage here of these races, on last game you really wanted to be the guy behind going into a last lap, whereas now I feel like you need to be the guy ahead. As long as you have more ERS. Yeah, it's the guy ahead, just if you're both using ERS at the same time, it's just so easy to counter the attack from the guy behind. So that's kind of what I feel like so far. So please, again, let me know what your experience is. And I think you'll see coming out of Maggots and Backets here, give a pretty good example. So I'm trying to get as close as I can because I really want to try and overtake him here. That was the goal, and you can see a hint of the dirty air there. So we're using the ERS, he's using the ERS as well, and yeah, last game this would have been a breeze even if the guy ahead of you was using the battery, but we're not even side by side, and I think we're using pretty much exactly the same setup as well. So yeah, it's pretty nuts indeed. So I think you really want to be the guy ahead, but as we come in through into this penultimate corner, we go on the cut a bit too early, and it's so easy to lose the car in this game. And I feel once you do lose the car, it's actually pretty difficult to recover. So, although Schumacher did wait for me, I think he won that race fair and square through my mistake. So, we move on to Australia now, which I think we are in the top 2 in the world. Or, no, I think he's number 1, and I'm number 4 or 5 or something when I did the time trial. So, he's actually the world record holder around here. So, this should be a fairly good test. So, it's 1-0 to Schumacher so far, so he's got to win another 2 races, and yeah, it looks like he's locking up, because I know I did that video on every type of F1 player, but I'm pretty sure that is just a animation. I don't think he's actually locking up. I think it's just when you're spectating you have that, and it's a pretty similar story for this race as well, where we're going to have a little glimpse of the slipstream here. So we're not using any of the overtake button, and we're just relying on the slipstream, and yeah, we're getting a little bit, but nothing where we're going to be able to go side by side of him at all. So if you have ERS to use, then you really want to be the car ahead, as I said. And because I think it's pretty difficult to recover the battery, and I think in this game you really want to be saving the battery as much as you can as well, because if you use it too early, and yeah, the guy behind you has the overtake button and you don't, then it's going to be an absolute breeze for them to get past, because it's just so powerful. It's actually it's crazy how powerful he actually is. And yeah, it's just that when you've got someone behind you who's trying to attack you, all you have to do is just use a little bit and you can just counter them off, because you just get that instant power straight away. And you can see again, we're quite comfortably within the DRS zone, so we're going to get DRS on the exit of this corner, going through a fast left right chicane, and yeah, you'll be able to see the gap is 0.3 of a second. As we come into this bottom corner, I think we barely even gained a tenth going through there, which is yeah, just absolutely nuts. As we're going into this penultimate corner, just locking up a little bit. And one thing I do really enjoy about this game is the brakes. I think the brakes are very satisfying, and I think for my own personal driving, I think probably my biggest strength in this game is the trail braking, which is absolutely essential. Just having that balance and that feel on the brake pedal. For me, moving to this cockpit, I just have a much better feel on the pedals, I feel. Although I just said that twice, but yeah, it just feels really, really good, basically in a nutshell. And yeah, it just knowing how much pressure to do and just really treating it like you're stepping on an eggshell. That's the way you want to be approaching the brakes if you're not using ABS on this game. And I feel like I just don't really lock up that much at all. And if you can trail brake effectively without locking up and allowing the brakes to rotate the car, then you're going to have an incredible advantage over other people as we make a bit of a hash of that chicane here. So again, really trying to beat the car ahead, as Schumacher does go a bit in the deep, so he might have actually locked up on this occasion. So we are quite close coming into here, and we still have a good chunk of the ERS to use as well. It's coming through into this last corner, and what happens here? He makes a pretty crazy mistake, and it's what happened to me at Silverstone. This is what's been happening to me online as well. I spoke to Schumacher after this, and he said that his tyres were just overheating. Simple as that. And it's really, really easy to lose the car in this game. If you push too much, you will be punished with the tyres. So currently that is now 1-1. And we move over to Bahrain now, where I think we're the top 2 fastest no assist drivers around here still as well. And this race, I'm actually going to show you all 5 laps, because I think this was probably the best I actually drove in this little competition between us. And yeah, hopefully this will illustrate kind of the characteristics you need to focus on if you want to improve your pace on this game. So I'll just try to save my ERS as much as I could and only use it when I really have to, and just focus on getting that traction, those good exits. And the setup I'm running here, you'll notice that the differential is a little bit different. It's gone down to 60%, but it is exactly the same setup as I posted on my hot lap and setup video, the very first video I did on this game. And the only thing I changed is from 95 differential, or 90, down to 60. And I think the theme of this game now is that you want to be running as low, really, differential as possible, which I will explain in a setup explanation video. But in a nutshell, the reason why you do that is that it allows you to get on the traction easier. So it won't give you as much traction performance, but it basically prevents you having wheel spin, where both of the wheels, since you're going on the power, are going to be rotating more independently. So if one side of the car is spinning too quickly, the other side will counteract it. So therefore, if you have a bit of an oversteer moment or getting a bit of wheel spin on the traction, the car will kind of correct itself much easier, which you might not get the traction absolute performance, but I think you might actually just be more consistent, which will give you more lap time in itself. And I think it just makes it much easier to go on the power, which everyone has said that this game is quite difficult on the traction, so it does make sense that is the case. But I think if we do have a traction update to make it a bit more realistic, then you could see this differential going back up to around 90 or 100%, like it was on 2021, because the traction on that game wasn't really particularly difficult. But yeah, in this race we were driving very, very nicely, keeping him really 7 tenths behind, so he's not getting any of the benefit of the slipstream. We've still got quite a lot of our ERS available, and yeah, this track used to be quite a big weakness for me, but on this game I just find it really, really satisfying to drive with this handling model, where it's really crucial to focus on the traction. And that's kind of been my strength in the past, is getting good traction out of corners, where I've liked a bit more of understeery setups instead of having a setup that's super on edge. I like a car where you have to try and keep the momentum going and keep it as stable as you can. And yeah, again, even though he's got the DRS, he didn't really close in that much at all. And this has given me quite a lot of confidence, because Schumacher has been in the top 10 on PlayStation for the last 3 years, setting quite a few world records in this game as well, which I'll have to try and take back in a future video. I think he's got 5 world records on this game already. This gives me a lot of confidence that I'm able to, effectively almost pull away and keep him at bay going around here. So the goal for me is to try and really be the best player on this platform if I can. That is really the goal, and to really try and improve my one lap pace, the raw speed, because I feel if I can improve that, then I will just become a much more complete driver in itself. But you can see again, we're almost actually out of the DRS zone, so at this point I only really have to use the ERS if I feel he's getting a little bit too close. And at this distance, if he used, he would have to sacrifice a lot of his ERS, and all I would have to do is respond last minute with the overtake button, and then I would actually be able to stay ahead of him. So coming down this straight, I don't think I'm going to use any of the overtake button whatsoever. And let's see what the gap is. So he's got the DRS, and it's actually gained around about 2 tenths only going down that straight. And yeah, I just feel it's a little bit too easy to defend against people from behind, and maybe if the DRS was more powerful, that would be better, but I do feel there might need to be a little bit of a tweak in terms of the balancing of the game. But again, please let me know what your thoughts are on that. But yeah, in this race here, I don't think we've really made a mistake at all. Just driving absolutely flawlessly at the moment, and yeah, this is kind of the confirmation I needed, because I know my pace in the time trial has actually been surprisingly quite good, but you never really know until you actually jump online with someone else who you would say is almost equally as good, and you know is a pretty serious benchmark to go against as well. So as we're coming towards the end of this lap, the gap has come down just a little bit, so it looks like he's probably using a little bit of the ERS, and we're just going to counter that a bit, and you can see how much that has actually gained us in a straight line just through that little bit of that ERS use. So coming through into the start of this last lap, we're going to use the ERS here, and you can see even with the DRS we're putting away quite a lot, so it might even have a little bit more ERS in him anyway, because since the DRS is not powerful, you would have to actually, if you were a bit slower than someone, you would have to actually expend a bit more of the ERS to keep up, because on last game it was, in my opinion, a bit too easy to stay within someone's DRS. So I think that's why they've maybe tried to nerf that a little bit, but I think it might be a little bit too extreme, maybe just a bit. But you can see we've actually broken out of the 1 second window here, and yeah, driving really well. I don't think we've really locked up at all going around this track, and I will be doing a video on my settings, my force feedback settings and camera settings, but a lot of people always ask me that. Please note that that is always in the video description, so if you just go to the description of this video, you will see all of those settings. I think the only calibration settings I've changed, apart from the default, is the brake dead zone and the throttle dead zone, just to make it a little bit less sensitive on the first initial input, because sometimes it's quite easy to lean on it a bit when you're on the straights, or to pick up the throttle a bit too early. But everything else is on 0 default, and going across the line we do it at 29.6, putting out of the DRS zone, and now that is 2 races in my favour. Now we move on to Spain, which is going to be quite a hard track to overtake, so this should be quite a good test. And we're actually running the default setup here, because neither of us have we haven't actually done the time trial around here yet, but we have driven this track in open lobbies ourselves, so we decided to use the preset 4 setup for this track. And yeah, it's going to be a bit of a challenge to overtake around here. There isn't really too many opportunities, but I actually really enjoy this layout. I love the updated corner, which on the previous game that actually used to be a little bit of my Achilles heel, that corner. So the fact that they've changed that one and they've done something of these curves here, I'm really happy with that itself. So coming into the corner we were just talking about here now, it goes a little bit wide into here, but it's just so much wider than it was before, but much more flowing. And we're going to come into this last sector. Let's see, and the little snap of the oversteer here, but going through this last sector I feel particularly strong around here, so really getting as close as we can going through into chicane. And the strategy for me was just to try and force him to use his ERS as much as possible. So I'm kind of expending it all here, just trying to force him to use his, because if I didn't use my ERS at all, since it's not really that effective if he's using it as well, I want it to be at the stage where he runs out of the ERS and then I have some available, because that is really the only opportunity to overtake around this track, is just kind of forcing him to use all of his ERS, because the DRS is just not effective enough at the same time. So you can see here we're just going to try and put as much pressure on him as possible. So really just not allowing him to relax. And yeah, I think this would be quite a good tactic to do if you're doing like a 5-lapper, or coming towards the end of a league race, or you're battling with someone in a league race as well. So just go try and get as close as we can. You can see we're getting a little bit of a better line. Another snap of oversteer. So it looks like he is struggling just a little bit on this default setup. So again, go try and get as close as we can, almost pushing him round this last chicane. So slow in, fast out. We don't have the DRS just yet, but we're going to do exactly the same thing again, where we are just not going to allow him to relax. And if he does not use the ERS, then we might have an opportunity to actually go for the overtake as well. So just trying to force him to expend all of his battery, trying to get as close as we can. So just really trying to fill up his mirrors and turn his arrow indicator red. So just really trying to force him into mistake if we can. So again, just trying to get out of this dirty air. So just using a few different lines, just so I'm not caught in that dirty air itself. Try and get a good traction here. Use the ERS on the exit once again. So there's another DRS zone that's actually coming up, which could actually provide us with an opportunity. So using it again, so just trying to get as close as we can. So in the exit of this corner, we actually get a pretty good launch, but he doesn't use the ERS, and you can see the power. Since he's not using it, what we're going to do, we're going to go down the inside here. He leaves the door open. There's really nothing he could do here, and that shows if you're caught napping a little bit, or you're not using the battery power at all, that's how much faster you can be in a straight line when you are using the overtake button. And here now we have about almost 50% of the ERS, and you can see we got a really good chicane as well. So we might not even need to use it. So coming down the straight, looks like he is using it. So we just counter that, and you can see as soon as we counter it, that kind of stops his attack. So that is exactly what I mean. So I think if the balance stays like this with the ERS, then it's something that will probably definitely suit me quite well, because I like to try and be quite conservative with it, and like to be quite tactical with it as well. So it won't always be about the fastest, it'll be about the one who has the best raw consistency and can kind of hold back that power the most, really. As we're coming through into here now, all we got to do is get a good exit off the final corner, really. So coming through into this one, try and get a good exit of here, and we're using a little bit just to try and deter him, just get a good momentum coming into this one. And I absolutely love this corner. Really actually do enjoy the updated tracks of Spain, Abu Dhabi and Melbourne as well. Although apparently I'm saying Melbourne wrong. I'm just going to say Australia now in the future. But now coming through into chicane, trying to get a good launch off this corner, and I think we do once again. So using the ERS down the straight, and I don't think he's really going to be using that much at all, because he knows there's really no point here. So we're just going to try and create as big a gap as we can, coming off that final DRS zone into the final sector. So we're just got to try and keep it nice and neat and tidy going through this section. And yeah, I think every race I did here, and I think every day I'm playing this game, I'm just getting much more comfortable with it, and making sure I'm not rushing the traction, making sure I'm just being super smooth. And I understand they'll have to update it to make it more realistic, but I actually personally quite like how the traction feels, at least. But no, I do understand if they will update it for realistic reasons itself. As coming into here, don't think he's going to be quite close enough, as we set a purple middle sector, and let's see what we can do going through these final sequence of corners. So staying in a high gear, which seems to be the trend in this game as well. High gears definitely seem to be your friend. And coming off the exit of the last corner, that is going to be 3 races in my favour, winning this 1v1 against Schumacher _1. And yeah, just want to say massive thank you to him. Was very enjoyable. We'll definitely be having many more races in the future as well. Make sure you check out his Instagram as well. I'll leave a link to that in the description below. And yeah, hopefully you enjoyed that, and hopefully you might have actually learned something as well. I'm also very pleased to announce that my coaching has opened. So I have opened the slots for the end of July. So make sure you get that in if you want a one-to-one session with me. I will be doing it on every single platform. So yeah, thank you so much for the support. Hope you enjoyed that. Enjoy the Grand Prix this weekend. And I will catch you very, very soon. Peace.